This UCSD TV program is a presentation of University of California Television. Your support makes UCTV's programming possible. Contribute online at uctv.tv/support. Check out the YouTube original channel UCTV Prime at youtube.com/UCTV Prime. Subscribe today to get new programs every week. We all strive to live a long, prosperous, and healthy life. With advances in health and medical sciences, this goal is ever more attainable. The Sam and Rose Stein Institute for Research on Aging is a nonprofit organized research unit under the auspices of the University of California at San Diego, committed to advancing lifelong health and independence through research, education, and patient care. To better empower and improve the lives of young and old alike, the Stein Institute presents the following program.
You know, the field of aging, I would just start with, I think it's just a fascinating field, and it's a wonderful field to be in today. I mean, never before in the history of the world have we had this many people live this long. The book has not been written about what community should look like to be a great place to grow old. And what do we know about what we need to do as a community? So I think it's a very exciting field to be in and to partner, and that's what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today. You probably have all seen some kind of a slide that looks like this. It's the demographic shift in this country and most of the Western countries, and it's really based on two things. One is the baby boomers that are hitting, and right now, every day in the United States, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. So it isn't that they're coming, they're here, and there's a bunch of them behind. But it's also the longevity bonus. Our fastest growing segment of the population is over 85. So all of a sudden we're getting a lot more people coming in at the young side of old, and then a lot of people living a long time. So as we look at this, we see that it's going to be a huge shift in our communities, that we will become, for the first time, having more people over the age of 65 than under 18. It will change the face of many things that happens in our community. And it becomes, 20 to 25% down the road of our community will be people over the age of 60. And I think we have to stop and think about how rapidly this has happened. Over the centuries, life expectancy crept up very slowly. Often we'd add a few days or weeks per century. Then in the last few centuries, 100 years ago, at the beginning of the 20th century, life expectancy was only 47 years old, 47 years. And the other thing to think about is, think about what we were like in this country. Mostly we lived in small towns and on the farm. We didn't travel the way we did. We didn't have the kind of communication. We didn't have paved roads. This is what America looked like. And so in a remarkable century, the 20th century, where we saw tremendous changes in communication and in transportation, and certainly in the medical and the research field, it changed our lives tremendously. And of all the wonderful gifts that came out of the 20th century, how we can travel and how we can communicate and all of those things, what better gift can there be that life expectancy now is 78? That instead of just a few people living into old age, the 20th century gave us the tools in this country that almost everybody gained an additional 30 years of life in one century. What a gift. But one of the things I think about, and as I see around the country, while we always had a few people live into old age, now we figured out how to get almost everybody there. We're not sure what to do with everybody, now we've got them there. But that's what makes it such an exciting field, is writing that book and looking at that. We used to think about aging that if you inherited good genes, you're going to live a long time. That it's just kind of in the luck of the draw there. And I think it was in most people's heads, really, that was the determining factor, maybe 75, 80% of determining how long we're going to live. Well, research tells us that really is reversed, that it does help to inherit good genes, healthy genes, things that will help us live a long time. But it's really our behaviors and the way we live that's going to be the major factor in not only how long we live, but how well we live. We're going to talk more about that too. That we really look at what is it that can be the keys to this long life and preventative. And our behaviors are really, we're learning are even more important than we thought. You know, more about the good news of living longer. You know, we've never had this many people live this long. We've never had this many people this well educated. And really, also, the whole notion of retirement. If you go back again to the early 20th century, 1900s, the notion of retirement wasn't there so much. We probably lived, as we grew older, with extended family on the farm. Your duties might change in the family business or on the farm, but you didn't really just get up one day and say, I am through milking the cows, I am through with everything, it's time for me to relax. You took on new roles and you did different things. And in the 20th century, and probably one of the best successes of legislation that we have was the Social Security Act that really guaranteed, you know, that financial basis for older adults and that independence in retirement years. But it also put into play a kind of a line in the sand for retirement. And all of a sudden we were trying to figure out what that was. And keep in mind, one of the big factors of the Social Security Act that was passed in the 1930s, and of course we were in the midst of the Depression, there weren't enough jobs for everybody, and one of the factors, and over 50% of seniors lived in poverty, but one of the determining factors that they knew they needed was to get older workers, as we were living longer, out of the labor force, so that it would create openings for people to go to work. So when Social Security first came into being, there was this, okay, retirement time, and you can't work after retirement, and let's get that older population out of the workforce. So, and at the time the Social Security Act was passed, and they picked the retirement age, honestly a bit at random, they used what Germany had done, and that was at age 65 to retire. And you know what the life expectancy was at the point the Social Security Act was passed? 65. So it would be like us setting 80 right now as a retirement age. So things changed a lot, though, because again, you know, we all started living longer and things changed dramatically. So now what we see is, for many people, one of the great gifts is not only do we have years of life, for many people we have time at the end of life too. That you get a financial base and all of a sudden you have time to see, you know, what is it that we want to do, what's next. And that's one of the things we talk to people a lot about too, is to think about that and what we're going to do. Some people may spend as many years in retirement as they do working, and clearly maybe 25% of our lives may be spent in some form of retirement. Now, you know, it's the good news and the bad news. You know, I think to me, it's overwhelmingly good news. We're living longer, all those things that go with it. But we do know that we've got some daunting challenges that we as a nation, we as a community have to take on to really look at this huge demographic shift and how we address that. And I think some of the key things we look at, and I'm going to talk more about this, is just the dramatic increase in chronic disease. Skyrocketing healthcare costs that are going with that. How do we make sure people have enough income to have a dignified standard of living? And how do we make sure that we're continuing to keep older adults engaged in our community? I think the message I always give out to the community, though, the age wave is here. And it really is this opportunity that we have now to say, what is it that how do we want our community to look? What should policies be? What should legislation be? What should be practices? And frankly, partly it's our mental model that we think of. We're quite a youth-focused society, and the value is we put on the young. Well, wait a minute. I always believe, and what I say to people, that maybe America's only growing natural resource are older adults. Let's talk about that a little more. We really are forging new ground as we go forward, and we're building that roadmap here. And that's why I think, again, it's so exciting to work with UCSD and much of the work that's going on here. So even some of our challenges can be opportunities. Now let me tell you a little bit about who we are at the county and a little some issues there before I go on. Of course, you know that we are a very big county, and in the state of California, because the state's so big, the county really delivers health and social services. So we have about over 3 million people here, 3.2 million. And right now, as of in the 2010 census, over the age of 65 is 378, a little over. Now again, that number, because the baby boomers are coming in, will grow dramatically until we're over 20% of our population. So we really are where it's forging ahead. So how do we fit in as county government, and what's our role? Some years ago, we administer both health and social services, and our county decided they wanted to merge those two departments to create health and human services to better integrate those services. And they created regions because, again, we're such a big geographic county. We're the size of Connecticut. So we're a big county land-wise, and we're bigger population-wise than 20 states. So we have a lot of issues to deal with. But what they did with the senior issues is they said, you know, we really know this demographic shift is coming. Let's move all of the programs that serve older adults and put them under the umbrella of the Area Agency on Aging, which is a federally designated entity that we are, and get some federal dollars, and really try to create, you know, prepare for our aging population. We have over 30 programs that we administer. The vast majority of our money is federal and state dollars. The Aging and Independent Services administers almost $450 million a year in services and benefits that come out into our community. So we're a big force, and we do a lot with our programs. We do administer some of those programs, and we contract out with partners in the community. And then we often partner with other folks to go after other grants and opportunities to come in and work with. When we became an integrated system of services, that was about 13 years ago, we were 30 different programs with 30 different phone numbers. We were everybody located in different places doing different things. All that money came very categorically, and the services were really delivered categorically. And that's when I really came on board with the county, and the goal was to create an integrated system of services, improve access to services, and improve our partnering with the community. We were, as we started out, a new org chart, and that's not a new organization, but we have worked very hard these last years to really be innovative. And we have been recognized, the Administration on Aging, which is the federal agency, part of Health and Human Services, last year named us the most innovative program in America. And we have received several accolades. They love the fact we are so integrated. Most places don't have the kind of integration of services, and you're still kind of bouncing around trying to find who does what and where. So we're very proud of that, and we're often held up as a model for the state and the nation for the way that we do. We're also held in high regard and as a role model for our emphasis on prevention. And I'll tell you, you know, Maureen mentioned intergenerational. I was in Washington, D.C. this spring and up on Capitol Hill, and we were named one of the best best communities, one of 5 best intergenerational communities in America. So we believe in intergenerational programs as well. This is a kind of org chart that I put together, if you would look, you know, rather than I tried to not be too bureaucratic with it. We decided we had to combine all of our programs and make sense out of it and see how it fit together to integrate. And so the first thing we did was take our 30 different programs and combine them into one phone number. You know, people didn't even know where to start and bounce around. And we really serve seniors from the independent senior. We do programs like RSVP, which is senior volunteer. We have veteran services. We do a lot of health promotion, information and assistance, outreach and education. We also do a lot of senior nutrition programs. Those are federal dollars, so we have congregate sites. We have over 65 sites. We contract that out. And then we do home-delivered meals through those sites as well. We do a lot of work on care management, adult daycare, caregiver programs. One of the additions to the Older Americans Act was realizing that a lot of older adults themselves are caregivers for others, and that we need to care for the caregiver. So we do a lot of programs there. We run a very big program called In-Home Supportive Services, which is a state program that has a mix of both federal and state dollars that targets low-income seniors. And it's those seniors that are low income and need assistance with daily living. And it's about going in and doing services in their home to keep them safe in their home and out of a nursing home. It's not nursing services, it's personal care services, but it's often bathing, cooking, cleaning, shopping, transportation. Those things are very critical in keeping people safe and in their home. We're the second largest program in the state. We have over 25,000 individuals on this program. And it's being discussed a lot in the state about how to continue to support this. We also run adult protective services. You know, the good news with getting older, but the bad news sometimes is people see this growing population and they think, oh, there's money there and there's people to be taken advantage of, both financially, physically, and often even with neglect. So we go out and investigate cases of elder abuse. We work very closely with law enforcement around the county and very closely with our DA's office to prosecute. They have a separate elder abuse unit. We actually receive about 1,000 calls a month reporting suspected elder abuse, and we go out and investigate that. We're not 911. If somebody thinks there's an urgent thing, they should call, you know, for emergency help. But for somebody, a senior that you haven't seen in a while, someone that doesn't seem something right at their house, financial institutions are mandated reporters that all of a sudden a senior came in and took out a large withdrawal. They can alert us, and we'll just go check and make sure all calls are confidential. We go out, visit the home, and check to see if they're okay. We can take services into support, or we work with those to protect the seniors. So, you know, we do a lot of work with that area. We do ombudsman programs where we work in nursing homes and board and care facilities that people go in and kind of the eyes and ears in there to advocate and be a voice for people. Seniors in nursing homes, over 70% of them never have anyone visit them. So it's good to have somebody else who's in there. The vast majority of our board and cares and our nursing homes are fine institutions that care a lot about those folks. But we just need to make sure that that's happening. And we often go in and resolve disputes and take care of them. And then if we see a bigger problem, we report that. We also have some mental health services that we do. We also work with Public Guardian if we have to go in and help, and then Edgemore, distinct part skilled nursing facility. So we do a whole array of services. Running through that is our call center, because for all of these services now you just call one phone number. I'll show you that. And also on the bottom, we show intergenerational, because we weave intergenerational into everything we do. Sometimes it's kids helping seniors, sometimes it's kids and vice versa. And it's always mutually beneficial to both. This was a big, big first step. You can imagine 30 different phone numbers and to get to one phone number. This is the number that you call from 8 to 5 for information, to apply for in-home supportive services, to report elder abuse, or for a whole number of services. And then after 5 o'clock it rolls, and people can still call 24/7 to report elder abuse, and we will roll out at any point on that. So this, again, has been held up as a model, and I will tell you, unfortunately, that most of the rest of the country hasn't gone to this, but it's clearly the direction to go. It's complicated. We had to cross-train. We had to do things differently and use technology, but clearly it's the route to go. We also have gone out and worked a lot with our communities. Again, because we're so big geographically, we try to be, one of our jobs, I guess, we see our role is to be a facilitator of issues on the big scale. So we host conferences and we host learning opportunities. But then we have formed regional networks to really get in and work. What does this mean in South Bay? What does this mean in North Coastal? What does this mean in East County? Because, you know, again, we're so big, our communities vary a lot from one part of the county to another. So we try to mobilize and move to action. So they have a voice at their local city councils, that they get educated on things, that they work and say, these are issues that are important and how do we move forward. We're very pleased with a lot of our partnerships. We see this as a very high priority, as I mentioned, UCSD, but we work across. We work a lot with our public health department, behavioral health, district attorney, law enforcement. We love working with educational institutions. We work with workforce partnership because the issue of work is a big deal for a lot of older adults. Many have to continue to work in some form or want to. We do a lot of partnerships in the private sector, a lot with healthcare. We're doing a lot of work with libraries. I love libraries. You know, when you think about, people are saying, what's the future of senior centers? Because, you know, many of us as we get older won't go into a senior center because, you know, we're not old. But yet, you know, that's where a lot of services are. So, but you might go into the local library that's offering all kinds of innovative programming and education and food programs. So we really are, that's again the excitement of it, reinventing ourselves in what we're doing. We also do a lot of work with our tribes here. They have been great partners. with us. In fact, they help fund one of these programs. When you run adult protective services and you go look at cases of elder abuse, like any kind of, whether it's a financial scam or physical abuse, it's really difficult after the fact to go in. If the money's gone, it's very hard to get back. If somebody stole, or there was a scam, or a relative, if someone has been physically abused, we really try to move everything we do into the prevention side. And so we go out and try to prevent these kinds of things and educate folks. And so we put together this award-winning program, which is us and the DA, called Protect Yourself and Your Wallet. This is Mary Davis. She's 72 years old, black belt. She's one of our presenters, and while she's not training anybody to be a black belt in karate, she does train people on kind of basic protection. You know, things like when you're walking out of the mall and you've got sacks and your head down, you're headed to your car, you're more vulnerable, you know, to keep your head up and look around. Don't open your door to strangers. Be aware of things. And we really educate on financial scams. Financial scams, you know, well, they're just out there. And again, it's like that issue about why do people, they rob banks? Well, it's where the money is. Well, people are looking at this as where some of the money and resources are. So we really are trying to educate, and frankly, sadly, the DA's office will tell you the most likely person to abuse a senior, either physically or financially, is a relative or someone known to them. And that's true of most kinds of abuse or scamming. So we just try to educate people. What we know, and I'm going to tell you this, seniors get in the most trouble in every way I can think of: isolation, neglect, scams, if they get off alone and isolated. And the one thing we've got to do is try to stop that isolation. How do we keep people connected and part of what we do and part of our community? So we put on these series, and this was funded by our tribal governments, and we hosted these throughout the county and local libraries. Small groups where we really did. It's very, very innovative and award-winning. We do programs to support caregivers that we get out there. Cool Zones. We're launching Cool Zones on Friday of this week. Started by Supervisor Jacob. That in hot weather, and if you're out in East County or North Inland and you're in a mobile home or you don't have air conditioning, the heat can be deadly. And it's deadly as we get older. So this is a whole program that we've done for over 10 years now, that in these hot days we distribute fans to folks, and we have over 150 places where on hot days seniors can go to stay cool. You watch the news, you know, a lot of the country is really hitting some bad heat, and they don't have the kind of coordination that we have. Food for Thought's an innovative program. When you look at that, that's one I mentioned. Sometimes, again, we have these congregate meal programs, senior centers, and people won't go in because they're not old, they're not a senior. So we partnered with the Vista Library. Vista runs a congregate site, and we launched this program called Food for Thought. We didn't even say it was for seniors, but we put it during the day and invited people to come in and take a class, have a gourmet lunch, peruse the library. And, you know, if you're 60 and over, it's a donation. Well, the first day, we were hoping to get 15 or 20 people. We had 60 people there, you know, that came, and they took a yoga class, and they had a great lunch, and they connected with the library. So we're really looking for those unique partnerships. Libraries are wondering what their future is going to be. Sometimes people say, you know, there won't be a need for libraries. We see them as a real hub in neighborhoods and communities. And it's been a very innovative, great partnership, and one example that we try to do. We try to do a lot on transportation. I'm just going to say, you know, it's one of the big issues. You know, what's in the news is when someone gets older and can no longer drive. Well, the last thing we want is them to stay home and become isolated. So we have to do a better job of continuing to develop ways and coordination that we can keep people connected to our programs. And that's a big challenge. But we've come quite a ways. We've got volunteer driving programs. We're getting some dedicated funds to do more, but we have to continue this because it's a very, very big issue. We do strategic summits every 2 years on aging issues. This picture is one we did in, I think, 2010, maybe 8. This was on lifelong learning that we talked about, and our speaker was Buzz Aldrin. And we try to get a celebrity there because it kind of gets everybody there, and then we educate them on a lot of issues. Because we really want to tell seniors the importance of lifelong learning. Obviously, everybody in this room knows it. the joy of learning, keeping our brains sharp. For many people even that want to or have to work, they may need to retool and learn some new skills to go to work. So every year, though, we take these topics. Last Friday, we did our summit this year, and it was on intergenerational. Normally, we have one site, and we get people. We started, our first summit was 200 people, and it was kind of what could the county do better, and they said, we'll get rid of all those lines and get one phone number, and, transportation, and we've looked at things. One summit was, let's do a little more on intergenerational, so we started working. Now we're to the point, last week, we did intergenerational. We had 3,000 people participate. We had our site at the Town and Country Center where we had our speakers, but then we had a satellite site that we webcasted in South Bay, East County, Escondido, and Oceanside, and they all heard the same speakers about this calling to action to take an intergenerational approach to building better health, for all of us to be healthier, and then everybody locally did local planning. Huge success, and I think that's one of the things that's really moved us all forward is so many great partners in this community come together, and if we can, and that's one of our roles, is trying to help facilitate that discussion that goes on. Now, we know there are challenges to healthy aging, and I mentioned isolation, depression. We talk about the issue of mental health. The segment of the population that has the highest suicide rate, unfortunately, is older adults. That tolerance that we think as you get old, sometimes you get depressed, and that we understand sometimes with loss in life that there is depression. It shouldn't be clinical depression. It shouldn't result in suicide. We've got to do better, and we're working on that. Poverty, and I want to just say a word about that. One of the things we've been doing and working with UCLA on this actually is right now poverty is you hear the term federal poverty level. Well, the federal poverty level was never a good accurate measure of true poverty. It came out of the 1950s, and it was based on the fact that we spent a third of our income on food, and it was quickly put together, and the formula has stayed the same since the 50s. They just update it with a certain cost of living. But the other bad part of it is one size fits all. Here's the federal poverty level, whether you live in Kansas, Idaho, or San Diego. Well, that doesn't make sense, and we know that. So the work we've been doing with UCLA is they have really emerged with this whole elder economic standard, where they really go into communities and measure what it takes to live there. And they do it on a very basic way. This is not living luxuriously. But the federal poverty level for an individual right now is $11,000 a year. Well, good luck living in San Diego on $11,000. They came up with, and then we have helped fund in San Diego County, when you look at it, and there are actually different levels. Are you a homeowner? Do you have a mortgage? Are you a renter? Living with others? But even at that, the level is $24,000 to live at that level. And that's basic rent or home, transportation, food. And if you up it to that, $24,000 for an individual, it almost approaches 40% of our seniors that live at that level. That is a more accurate level of poverty. So seniors have been hit hard by this last crisis we've had, the recession. And I think we have to continuously look at this and say, how are we going to have the standard where people can live with dignity? And we've got to continue to work. And while there's not a lot of new money anywhere, we are trying to get the data out there so people understand that. I'm going to talk a little more about obesity and substance abuse, but these are all things that we have to really look at. Now, I'm going to show you a picture next of a home that I did a ride-along with our public administrator's office, and this woman had been a teacher. She'd been an important member of our society, and somehow as she aged, she got off alone and isolated. This is in San Diego County. She was in a lovely neighborhood, but this is what her residence looked like. And clearly, her last years were not pleasant ones. She hadn't had electricity in a long time. It was filthy and dirty and no water and lots of problems, and she kind of hung on, and look at that. How can this be? In this place. We can do better, and that's what we're trying to do. As we were there that week and working, because we have to go through all of her stuff and find out, neighbors came around, yeah, we hadn't seen her in a long time, and how do we educate people that this is not what we can tolerate for anyone in our community. And I will tell you, we roll out on about 30 to 40 of these a year, this bad. Now, there's a lot of that in between. But that, again, why didn't she call for help? You know what? People are hesitant to call for help because they're afraid we're going to come and put them in the home, you know? And I think that that image of aging is I was either at home or I'm in the home, and I don't want to do that. And the message we want to get out to everybody is, wait a minute, we have this whole array of services. We will do everything we can to keep people where they want to age and where they want to be. We will bring services to your home. How about if we had connected her with a nutrition program and classes and activities to do and friends that we're connecting? We could even do daily phone calls. We have transportation that could pick her up and take her. We could be there to help her age gracefully and with dignity, because, you know, and that's what we try to do. The Supreme Court has even said that as public entities, we have to let people live in the least restrictive setting. That's great. That's what we want to do. That's where we all want to live. But we want to live with choices. And right now, there's a lot of choices for people to live. Sometimes it's shared housing. Sometimes it's, you know, in these progressive areas. Sometimes it's other things. But this isn't what we want. So how do we not see this? We know that there are really 3 keys to successful aging. And so if you're going to build a plan and move forward, these are the things we've got to look at. Physical fitness is very, very critical. Our mental fitness, both our learning and using our brain, but our mental outlook and our mental health. And, you know, no matter how old we are, we have to continue to have purpose and meaning in life. I've never heard anybody say, just put me out to pasture. I don't want anybody to care about me anymore. We are social beings, humans. We want to stay connected. So how do we do that? So that's the approach we start taking. Let's tackle these things. That's what our aging summits have been based on. That's where we're working. That's where we're going. This is the exciting field. So we do things like Feeling Fit clubs. We have added these exercise programs that we do at our nutrition sites. We film and we are on county television. We're the most popular show on county television, by the way. I tell the Board of Supervisors that all the time. But we're trying to help people know, as we age, our muscles atrophy, you know, we've got to keep working at it. But if we don't keep working at it, we are going to lose our independence. We are more likely to fall. You know, just all those issues. But we can get people signed up for Silver Age yoga to improve our balance. We do Tai Chi classes. We have a whole variety of things that we either do or we can connect with our community. We do our Vital Aging Conference our Aging Summit every other year. In the year that we don't do, we do one focused just on health, vital aging. How do we keep going? What more things can we do? How do we educate and how do we help people become? At our conferences, again, I mentioned if we bring celebrities, we've had all kinds of people come and be the speakers, and it's been really uplifting. I have to tell you that when Art Linkletter spoke, he was 91 years old. Oh my gosh. He was sharp as a tack, so funny. We talked about the importance in humor as we age, but a lot of good things there that people see and see these other role models for people as we age. Our first speaker was Jack LaLanne and just passed away, and he was 90, I don't know, 7 or 8. But the important thing about Jack LaLanne, he not only lived a long life, he lived a very active life right up until the end. And I think that's the other issue we talk about. It's not just how long we live, it's how well we live. This takes me to our initiative, and I want to talk a little bit about this. I could do a whole presentation on this. We're rolling out a 10-year plan in San Diego County about building better health. It's really built around the concept of 3-4-50. There are 3 behaviors we are doing, and that's here locally and in the United States, that are leading to 4 diseases that are causing over 50% of the deaths in this country. And those 3 behaviors are smoking, poor diet, mostly it's overeating, obesity, and inactivity. 3 behaviors leading to heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and lung problems. And it's causing 57% of the deaths in San Diego County. Now, this is a public health crisis in the whole United States, but it is here too, and we've got to do something about it, and that's what our health initiative is about. There was a survey of 1,200 older adults recently about what advice they gave the young about their health. And they came to the conclusion that it isn't dying that you should worry about, it's chronic disease. It's years of debilitation and problems that come from chronic disease. And we have got to look at these issues and say, how can we do better? You know, 200 years ago, the big public health issues were clean water and sewage. That's really how public health started, was cleaning up our water and starting. 100 years ago, it was infectious diseases, microorganisms we couldn't see, and through antibiotics and through vaccinations and things, that's what really extended our life. Ironically now, again, that goes back to we have these long lives, it's the things we're doing to ourselves or not for ourselves that we're killing ourselves. And we need to step back and realize that. And this is across the whole age spectrum. And that's why this is about building better health for all ages, leading to these diseases that's really killing us. We've been working a lot with our health department because we can take this data and break that percentage down by community, by zip code. We can get in and look, and I know in Alpine, we have a high percent of diabetes there, and we need to get in and start working on that issue. So that's what's important about getting this data that we have and getting it out into our community and saying, what are we going to do differently? You know, we've made great strides in smoking. When you think about what's changed in smoking, after World War II, or during World War II and after, we gave GIs free cigarettes, right? Cartons of cigarettes, job well done, thank you. It was cheap to smoke. It was easy to smoke. We'd probably be smoking in here right now. It was socially acceptable to smoke. It was sexy to smoke. And as we started learning about, you know, the dangers of smoking, we started changing things. We started educating people, but we also started changing policies and rules about smoking. We made it that you couldn't, you know, that you could only smoke in half this room, not the other half, the front of the airplane, not the back, half the restaurant. We started taxing it. We started making those kinds of changes. Then we realized that secondhand smoke was just as deadly, and we started making huge changes on you can't smoke in here at all. We started making it much harder to smoke. We started really educating people, and we started taxing it even more. And really where you are today, and California has been a leader in this. Do you remember a few years ago when California said we're not going to smoke in bars and restaurants anymore? And the uproar, and no, you know, the bars will close down. Turns out they're thriving because people were staying away because they were smoke-filled. But we actually are the state, second best state for having reduced smoking, behind Utah, and which is great for how big we are. But now you look at it's expensive to smoke. I think it's $5 a pack. I saw the other day. It's inconvenient to smoke. You have to go out around somewhere else. It's really not as sexual, or it's certainly not sexy anymore, and it's not as socially acceptable. And I think that's where, now you could still smoke, so we still have that choice to smoke. But all those things impact and have reduced smoking dramatically. That's the kind of thing we have to look at with our Building Better Health as well. It's about controlling environment, and we have come to realize that to be healthy, to exercise, to get out and walk, to do things, it's not just choosing to do so. You've got to work in a community that you can get out and walk. Do you know life expectancy, average life expectancy, if you're born and raised in La Jolla and this area versus Southeast San Diego, there's a difference of 14 years of life expectancy. Now that's not here in Mississippi, which is the worst state in terms of obesity. That's here because it's about access to fresh fruits and vegetables, healthy food. It's about having safe parks where everybody can play. It's about safe sidewalks where you get out and walk. And we have to really address these inequities to become healthier. So place does matter. And we have to educate our policymakers and folks around about that to really make it easier to get out and really tackle this from, and we have many, there's 4 elements to our Building Better Health. 1 is to improve our system. 2 is to help educate people to make healthy choices. 3 is to really work broadly to develop policies and rules about developing a healthier area. And also for the county, we're looking at our own culture within. What about, we have 17,000 employees with the county. What are we doing to be healthy? And how do we share that with other big employers and small employers to be healthy? So this is a big, big initiative. You know, we got to turn this ship around. The percent of the federal budget in San Diego County, we spend about $4 billion a year on these chronic diseases. And as a part of the federal budget and Medicare every year is becoming bigger and bigger part of the federal budget. And if we stay on the same track with those numbers going and just chronic disease and everybody getting sicker, and we pour money into health care instead of into health, we're going to break the bank. So for our own, from a taxpayer perspective, our budget perspective, we've got to do something. But for our quality of life perspective, we've got to do something. And lastly, I would say on this, and that's that issue of chronic disease again. You know, I had an uncle who was a smoker, and he used to say, well, I know it's going to kill me, but if I just, drop dead a year earlier, it'll be worth it because I enjoy smoking. Well, he didn't drop dead a year earlier. He lived with emphysema and lung cancer for 5 years with a lot of pain and misery and heartache for everyone. And that's that issue that you look at. It's very unusual that these things that you look at are going to kill anyone quickly. So it is in our own self-interest to really look at being healthy as long as we can. So we're doing a lot of work in these areas to be healthier. You see the chronic disease numbers and what we're doing. So we're doing a lot of work. We do chronic disease self-management, and we're partnering in the community. It's a Stanford evidence-based program where we work with community groups, because here's the other thing, okay? I want to do better. We sit with anywhere that wants to sponsor a chronic disease self-management. They'll get a class, they get a place. We'll come in, and it'll be for free, and run a series of weeks classes to help people change their behaviors to be healthier. It's really an encouraging, good program. To really get that. We're very social beings as well, so we know that we're influenced by those around us, so if we can get people around us to be healthier besides, it really makes a big difference. We're doing a lot with fall prevention. Falls are the leading cause of injury death of older adults, and what I will tell you is on average, 19 seniors a day fall and are injured badly enough they have to be taken by ambulance to the hospital. It's the leading cause of non-natural death of older adults, and for those that don't die, it's often very debilitating. So we know that we can help people prevent falls. They're predictable and they're preventable. And so we take 3 approaches. We have a large fall prevention coalition that we work with, and we attack it from 3 ways. One is medication management, because often it's multiple medications that make someone serious, or the combination of things. 2 is that balance issue, that Tai Chi, yoga. We have to keep doing things to keep our strength and our balance. And 3 is environmental. What kind of things do we have in our home? Do we have some grab bars? Do we have rugs we could trip over? All of that. We will go into homes and help people and review them to see how we can do that. So we do our part, but what's very important is we have a great big fall prevention task force that medical people from all over the county are really part of. So we work with that. We're also working a lot on the issue of long-term care integration. And it is about how, and I'm going to just briefly say, one of the things we're looking at is how do we better combine health and social service programs? Because for many people, what we realize is it's not just the health piece. Someone falls, they break a hip, they go to the hospital, they go to rehab, they go home. Well, they need social service supports to really stay healthy. And we're really combining those efforts to move forward on this. We just put in with a grant. We're working with 13 hospitals in the county, including UCSD hospitals, to write a grant to Medicare to reduce hospital readmissions. And a lot of this is really about linking with people before they leave the hospital, the social worker, and kind of catch them in that teachable moment and going home, and helping with a public health nurse and social worker make sure what's your medication, what other services do you need, what kind of help. And we did a pilot with Sharp Memorial, and I just want to give you a number. In our 18-month pilot with them, they had a readmission rate before of about almost 13%, and we reduced that to 2.3%. Our numbers were dramatic. After 90 days, 25% of people are readmitted, and we had reduced that to 8%. And it's really about getting to people and helping them be stable. So we just received word, except you don't tell yet, that Medicare is going to fund our program to do this. And it's very exciting that we'll be working and doing dramatic work to really reduce and help people. That's that taking it from health care to health. And that's what's really exciting about some of the things that are going on. And because of our integrated system, because of our partners in the community, it really puts us in a good position to move forward with this. So I want to talk just a little bit as I move to intergenerational. One of the things we did when we put intergenerational into everything we can do. And one of the things we looked at walkability in an area, and we went into La Mesa, in an old neighborhood of La Mesa between the high school and the middle school. And it was old, cracked sidewalks, and the street wasn't good. And we had seniors work with high school kids and understand the importance of place and what it takes to have people get out and be healthy. They presented to the school district, they presented to the city council, they presented to went to Sacramento and presented, and the city wrote a Safe Routes to School grant, which is some federal dollars. They were awarded to go in and they redid this section of town to make it more walkable. And so this is a picture of what an area looked like. That's not very enticing to get out and walk. Pedestrian-wise, you can't see cars coming. There really isn't an area to walk there. It's cracked. Moms aren't going to get out with kids. Seniors aren't going to get out. You don't want your kids walking to school if it looks like this. But after the grant and we redid it, that's what it looked like. You know, you put sidewalks, you remove them from the road, you put lights in. It's pretty dramatic that you add these kinds of things that make it safe. Here's one corner and what it looked like. Look what it looked like after we redid it. And, you know, it was just coincidental that when we went out and when it was this bad, nobody was out walking. And the day we just at random went out and take a picture, guess what? You know, people get out and walk. So that was a great, everybody wins on that. And it's a great intergenerational way that everybody wins. We do a lot of work with nutrition. We've got to make sure people have the right diet. That's an equal part of not the bad foods, the right foods. How do we educate people? What do we do with our dining programs? We just launched a new program where we actually we raised private dollars. And now once a week for our home delivered meals, we added to these regular meals, they get a sack of fresh fruits, locally grown fruits and vegetables. Oh, you think those little homebound seniors, they love it. They have always understood the value of fresh fruits and vegetables. For the first time, we are now publishing a report card on seniors' health, and we start measuring, and we can start seeing where are we and how are we going to move the needle. And it's everything from falls to suicide to these chronic diseases. And so we really are going to look at outcomes and where we get there with this. We have to keep working on our brain and our mental fitness. Lifelong learning, people seeking, you know, the right mental health services. Part of it is the folks working, and we actually have a whole initiative on older workers. If there's one thing out there that there's still prejudice against, it's ageism. And it does enter into a lot of places, and when you look at a tight job market, often the older worker just cannot get the job, and you can look at any of the data. And so how are we helping people be more employable? We're working with employers to dispel many of the myths about older workers, like, you know, they're not going to be as reliable because they're sick. But guess what? First of all, they are reliable, and they're not taking maternity leave. They're not doing any of those things that you have big gaps on. So there's a lot of life experience teaches us a lot, and that's a real value in the workplace. And we've been working with some great employers around. SeaWorld is one of them that we did, and they love it. They do a day where they just recruit older workers to come and work. And they have found that mix, that it helps their younger workers be more reliable, and they like that mix of what they're doing. So we've done a lot with that. You may have seen our mental health department, we work with that. Our big It's Up to Us campaign. UCSD was involved, that we really help educate people. There is a stigma with mental illness. Seniors are often very reluctant to go to a mental health clinic or somewhere, and we are finding other ways that we can help people get the kind of help they need, and make sure we do a lot of work on depression screening and then linking them with services that will help them. And we're out doing a lot with peer support on that, and also people that we know are isolated, on integrating it into other things that we do. And lastly, I want to take this and talk a little bit about, you talk about physical fitness, you talk about mental fitness, but this meaning of purpose in life. Why do I want to get up and be fit if nobody cares? If I've lost my friends, if my family all lives elsewhere, if nobody really needs me? And, that just cannot be. I will go back to my statement again that I believe our only growing natural resource are older adults. What a wonderful resource we have in our communities of people that have had these years of life, that have had these experiences, that have fought our wars, that have worked our jobs, that have built this country and have so much to offer. And we really need to make sure that, first of all, we get seniors to change the way they think, that I still have a lot to offer, but we do our community as well. That we really look at how do we tap into this into our communities. So one of the ways we did, we really have to change this mental model of aging. It isn't about being born, growing up, educating, living your life, retiring, and then this downward spiral. It can just be getting better and better, and the best is yet to come for as long, but we've got to get people educated and looking at what is that going to look like. And that's the exciting part, because that helps all of the elements that we're doing. You know, there's lots of good programs out there now holding up role models of people doing significant things in their later years. The Purpose Prize is something out of a foundation, Civic Ventures in MetLife, that they fund, and they're trying to hold it up like the Genius Prize to show this role model of people that are doing significant things. And this, I had a chance to meet this man. He's a gardener, as an immigrant to this country, was a gardener up there. And the day that his son graduated from Berkeley Law School, he was crying and saying, I want to help others feel this way. So he formed the Gardeners Foundation. And guess who they went to raise money? All the people that they did the gardening for. And they have raised money and created scholarships for immigrant children to go to college. So one person can do a lot, and you see the need, and they just get things done. There's lots of it. And at the same time, when you look at the value of older adults, one of the other things that's changed pretty dramatically is kids, we have more single parents than we've ever had before. We have families working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs, making end meets. We're a mobile society. If you had extended family that might have helped, they may not live here. And frankly, what it ends up meaning is we don't have enough caring adults in kids' lives. And so when you look at the working age group, I guess, if you want to say 18 to 20 to 60, 65, we're the most productive nation on earth. We work 13 months in 12. We work, and so it's really hard to get time to spend with our kids. And yet again, when you look at this, what's wrong with this picture? Kids need caring adults in their lives. Families are really working hard and don't have the kind of supports they have. It's changed dramatically as moms went to work and, everybody's there working. And yet we've got this older adult population that maybe one of the greatest gifts they have, and we all have besides our years, is some time. And so one of the ways we thought we could help convince people that older adults have a lot is to start really doing a lot of intergenerational programs. So we launched this at an aging summit about 10 years ago. And in 10 years, we went from starting programs to being named one of the inaugural best intergenerational communities in America. So this is kind of what we looked at. San Pasqual Academy, it's a residential school for foster kids in the county. Foster kids in graduating from high school, the rates were not high. We wanted to do more. Our Board of Supervisors, with partnership, bought an old Seventh-day Adventist boarding school up past the wild animal park, and turned it into a residential school for kids to really give the foster kids. So these are kids that aren't going to be reunified, they're not going to be adopted, they're bouncing around the foster care system. We're going to get them there and give them extra support to not only get them through high school, but get them on to a successful life. Well, as that program got launched and they got going and into about year 3, if you really believe older adults are a resource, we want to apply it to whatever. And we don't want people to just think it's kind of cute, older adults reading to kids. So we thought, well, let's take on a tough issue. Teenage foster kids, changing their lives. There were houses on that campus. We got them to agree that 10 houses, we moved seniors into those houses. And they, in exchange for reduced rent, they agreed to volunteer. And their job description is care about these kids. Do what it takes to help these kids get through school and on. And guess what? They do the things that caring adults do in kids' lives. They are just there. That's this picture is a couple years old, but that was the football team. But who's on the sideline watching the games? This is the prom they do. Who's adjusting the dress to make sure it fits? Who does dinner? Who makes birthday cakes? The older adults. And it has been like magic. This is a current picture. We have now pushed our high school graduation rate up there. It varies between 85 and 90. Our grandparent program has been there for 8 years. It is wonderful. PBS did a special on it. They came down and did about a 20-minute segment, and they had such a positive reaction. It was statewide. They did a whole half-hour show. You talk about a couple of throwaway groups. Some of these seniors are low income, but seniors, foster kids, guess what? You put them together, they created family and caring about. When the kids went off to college and did things, when there was break, they came back and stayed with the seniors. When we had the fires a few years ago that swept through there, we had to evacuate all that area. And none of the school or the student housing was destroyed, but all of the senior houses were destroyed. 10 of them, with everything they had. Everybody got out, no one was hurt. And I thought, oh, the programs, we're going to lose the program now. But it had become such an important part that all the partners said, we've got to rebuild and get these seniors back. Not one senior stayed away. They came back. And think of the resiliency lesson that those seniors showed the kids. You know, what do you hang on to your later years, the things that are important to you? They lost all of it. They came back and said, well, we got to start over. It's unbelievable the kind of lessons, life lessons we can teach when we put the generations together, and it's been phenomenal. What about, we had the first 5 commissioners, some money, having seniors help kids be school ready, low-income kids. I love this. When over 55 meets under 5, there's high fives all around. And we had them go into, Head Start programs and daycare and work with those kids and work with those centers, and we had phenomenal success. When I had a chance to testify at the Senate Special Committee on Aging, and this was my message, the benefit of older adults. We've got to support this kind of programs. They wouldn't let me do a PowerPoint, and I only had 5 minutes, so I had to talk fast. I gave him this picture. I mean, look at that. You don't think he isn't changing those kids' lives? He is a retired diplomat. His wife actually is an attorney. She's younger. She's still working. He retired. He was kind of bouncing around the house. She said, you got to go find something to do. And who would think he'd connected? This is a domestic violence shelter where he stayed, and transitional housing. And he has stayed there now for 7 years with these kids, stabilizing, working with them, really touching these kids' lives at a critical time in working with them. So, of course, if you were to have him, he would tell you the differences made in his life is on Grandpa Chuck. He loves it. We use seniors to mentor families coming off of welfare. You know, welfare reform, and families it's temporary. Well, it's easier said than done if you're a single mom and 4 kids and no car and not many skills and you got to go to work. We now, as we transition them, we have older adults who have been through a lot, mentor these families for a year and help them figure things out, help them find daycare, help them figure out transportation. That day they get the job and everything's going well and they call from the school that says your child's acting out. They're there with them. It has been a hugely successful program. We did it as a pilot. It went away a while. We had a great call to bring it back as one of our best ways of helping people get off and stay off of welfare. So it's part of how we do business in San Diego County now with our families. Legacy Core, we bring younger seniors together with at-risk youth and partner them to go visit a frail elderly person, giving their caregiver a respite break. Now that one's a complicated one. We get a little bit of caregiver money, but in the meantime, you're teaching these kids about needs in a community, caring about older adults, and how to the younger senior has a meaningful volunteer opportunity. It's been a great program with all kinds of great outcomes, and award-winning program. This is not what we can tolerate and have this kind of sad endings. This is what we want to see for vital aging. Those 2 in the top left-hand corner were both over 100. And they were active and dancing and participating. And we look at the meaning. And you find the right niche. Is working with 5-year-olds for everybody? No. But we want to have those opportunities, and that's what we want to build. So that's where I believe we want to go with how we partner and what we do, and we make sure that we know that purpose and meaning in life is really the blanket that goes over everything. And how do we make sure that all of our programs, all of our partnership, and every community is really thinking this way. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'll open it up for a few questions.